absolutely not prepared to go into, purely because I have never found a proper answer to that problem. It is the problem of freedom of will on one side and determinism on the other side, very complicated. Main thing is that when we follow this theory that the Torah was given at the time when there was an absolute need for it, because without it things would have gone worse, but originally the intention was that Halacha should not really have been part of the Jewish tradition based on Avraham Avinu, that is what our point of departure really was all about last week. Not without its many problems. Let me make another note about this. We discussed this a little bit last week, and that is what happened with all these people who Avraham Avinu and Sarah were trying to megayer, to convert them. Rashi brings, as you all know, the famous observation of this, that Avram went out of his way, tried to influence people to become Jewish, whatever that may have meant at the time. Sarah did to do the same thing, and the question then is, pardon?
I said that Abraham was the man.
And Sarah was the woman. We are going back here to an earlier discussion this afternoon. But the question has always been asked by many people is, what happened to all these people? They may have influenced thousands and thousands of people who were living in the Middle East. Avraham Avinu and Sarah were both trying to convert them. We never hear anything anymore about them. They all seem to be lost at a certain moment, because the story continues with Yitzchak. It doesn't this story continue with all these people. It continues with Yaakov Avinu. It continues with the 12 tribes. What happened to all these people? So one argument obviously could be, reason is that the system didn't work. Purely it did not work. Why did it not work? Is because it lacked halacha. It lacked exactly that particular thing which God brought in a later stage at the days of Moshe Rabbeinu. And that is that if you just speak about spirituality and it has no, let's say, down-to-earth replications in the sense of how do you live this kind of life, which is what halacha should really be all about, then it may be a lost mission. It won't work, and that's the reason why on the end all these people got lost, because Avraham Avinu was on a level they could not get onto, and therefore they left the fold as much as they in an earlier state entered the fold, but it was for them impossible to hold by this, and therefore the argument could be made that for that reason there was a need later on to bring the halacha into this to rescue this situation. There's obviously also a possibility as well, and that is that when we speak about Avram and Sarah being megayer to try to convert people, they were not at all speaking about the Jewish tradition as we speak about it today. They were basically speaking about the concept of the unity of God and some spirituality, and it may quite well be that they have been very successful, and that these people went to all the different parts of the world, all the corners of the world, brought some monotheism there, brought some, let's say, religiosity there, and that's all what Avraham Avinu basically wanted to achieve. It was never meant to be that they were going to become the Jewish people in the traditional sense of the word as we know it today. That possibility is there as well. We do not know what actually happened.
And obviously there is a third possibility, that it was for Abraham and Sarah. While they were preaching, they couldn't help overhearing themselves. It was good for them. And God has his own plans, and they eventually...
Okay, a fine possibility exists.
But the covenants that God made that are stated in the Chumash are related to the Jewish people. They're not related to people who went to China or India.
We don't know. We only know this after the facts. Now that these people are no longer there, therefore the covenant was made with Avram and Sarah. But we don't know what would have happened if they would have stuck to Avram and Sarah and they would have traveled with them and they would have been part of it. Would the covenant then also not have been part of theirs? That is exactly what we don't know. I'm just saying these possibilities happen to exist. What that could mean, and forgive me for saying so, is that perhaps they were speaking about, and don't misunderstand me, perhaps this was some kind of Christianity without Jesus. Perhaps it was just a monotheistic religion, and that's all what they were basically trying to achieve. And if they would have achieved that, it would be good enough. But the big problem which I have, and for which I do not have a good answer at this stage. I know that Rav Soloveitchik wrote about this, but I haven't read this book. Rav Soloveitchik wrote a book about Avram Avinu. I haven't seen it yet, or I haven't read it yet, and I don't know what is inside and what he's trying to suggest there, but he's speaking there about the religiosity of Abraham. Now, it is very important that we should know what that religiosity was all about, because what does religiosity mean if it is not somehow having an halachic dimension? Is it just feeling spiritual? Is it a matter of meditation? Is it a matter of having an encounter with God without any, let's say, down-to-earth implications? Is it feeling high? You know, there are many possibilities there. And here there is indeed a very important question to be asked, and that is a question which Yeshaya Leibowitz basically asked, and that is that how is it at all possible to be religious, at least in the sense, and this is in itself a problem, in the sense of knowing what God wants from you? What is it that God wants from man? If the halacha would not respond to that and would not tell man basically this is what you need to do and that's what you need to do, obviously with a music behind it and with the many colors behind it as we discussed before, then the question is, how can man at all get any closer to God? Yeah, the famous case which Leibowitz brings to prove his point, and he may overdo it as he often does, but the fact stays that Leibowitz is saying, take the case of Nadav and Avihu, who out of their own spiritual needs, feeling high, bring Eish Zar, they bring strange fire into the tent of meeting, into the Oil Moed, and instead that God says, well, that's great, you know, here we really have spirituality in the way as I would like to have it. What happens with these two people is they get killed by a fire coming from heaven from God. Saying, in other words, in according to Leibowitz and all Lithuanian readings, is something like, forget about it. There is no such thing as getting closer to God unless God tells you how to get closer to him. Unless there is a commandment how to do this. Why? Because you have no clue what you're speaking about when you speak about God. God is something which is completely beyond us. So if we start to guess how to somehow serve him, we may ultimately, says Leibowitz, end up in a kind of avodah zarah, in a kind of idol worship, because what is idol worship? And according to Leibowitz at least, his understanding, and he has got no doubt loads of people who would back this up, they would say, avodah zarah is at the moment when you start to serve God in a way which God did not ask you to do so, and in fact trying to get closer to him is in fact doing exactly the reverse. It removes you only more from him, because unless God tells you how to get closer with him, there is no way how we can know what is the road to get closer to him. It may well lead to something completely different, which was not at all what it means to be religious. That is what he says is what Nadav and Avihu's story is all about. They get killed because this spontaneity, walking in over here and doing their own thing, may end up into something which God does not want. Why not? Answers Leibowitz, at least he seems to indicate that, is because, compare it to another case. You can compare it to the case of the Cheruvim in the Mishkan, where you have these two angels, which are also considered to be a mitzvah. God says to the Jewish people and to Moshe Rabbeinu, to Aaron, to build these two images, when a little earlier he has said that you're not allowed to make any image. And when the Jews start to make the image in the form of the golden calf, they get in tremendous trouble because of that, and loads of people die. And in the case where God tells them, now you built me these two angels on top of the ark, then everything will be fine. Then obviously the question is, my high, what is happening over here? Both are images. And the Kusari answers on that the only difference is only one thing. One was a tzivui and the other one was not a tzivui. One was commanded by God. God saying, if you want to get closer to me, then the images which you built inside the Mishkan into the